the lake past, and thus swiftly attain the state of Vajradhara. Sorry, let's get this. Okay, let's do the 4 contemplations. May all beings have happiness and create the causes of happiness. May they all be free from suffering and creating the causes of suffering. May they find that noble happiness that can never be tainted by suffering. May they attain universal impartial compassion, free of worldly bias towards friends and enemies. Sem jendam je dewa tang dewe ju tang den pa ju tik, dungal tang dungal chichu tang drawa ju tik, dungal mepe dewa tampa tang min drawa ju tik, nering chak tang ni tang drawe tang non chempo la ne pa ju che. So, good evening if I haven't seen you before. And tonight we are going to do a special thing called, can you get to it? I've got so many things in this file that I've got to get to everything. I just want to see the exact title before I give you the wrong one. Simple practice makes perfect. Okay, now tonight I'm not going to do the practices because I've done that and a lot of you know them. I just want to talk about some of the essence of everything that we should be including and that we should be doing in the practices. And it's really very important. So I've got to go back to the Buddha's story of the raft, because this is the most relevant thing of everything, where the Buddha said to his monks, okay, you build a raft and it's quite tricky water. So you build it really beautifully. You take all the logs of wood, you tie it together very great, otherwise it's not going to take you across the river. And you get onto that boat and you cross the river, you get to the other side, and what do you do with the raft? Okay, so a lot of people would say, well, after all that effort of taking it, maybe I might need it later on. But that was not the answer about the practice. The answer was that when you get to the other side of the river, you no longer need the raft. You are already where you need to be in the practice, so you don't need the raft anymore. That's the difference between Buddhism and all the other religions and other things, because other religions tell you you must keep these practices till you die and thereafter. But in Buddhism, it says the practices are only to cross the ocean. Once you've crossed the river, you don't need the practices. You can drop them. In fact, as you go along, you should be changing you should be changing how you see it. You should be changing what you're doing. You should really have a lot of changes in what you do. And I think the other story, which I've told before, but I must tell it here because it's very relevant, is that a man visited a huge stone yard in Europe where workmen continued to add to the towers of a nearby building as they'd done for centuries. He asked one workman, "What are you doing?" The workman replied wearily, "My job is to square off the stones and move them." When he asked a second fellow, "What are you doing?" he replied, "I am a stone cutter working so I can care for my wife and children and feed my family." A third man performing the identical labor looked up joyfully and replied, "I am building a great cathedral." Now, if you look at those three things are exactly about the practice. What are you even doing in Buddhism? What are you doing there? Are you building the great cathedral of your awakened nature? Or are you just plowing on with everything that you can get and trying to get to a place, and using it and Sometimes you're bored, sometimes you quite enjoy it, and sometimes you forget about doing it, and all of that kind of thing. If you others could switch on your cameras, I'd be very happy because I like to see your faces. So it's really up to you. I think that I've changed completely in my whole outlook towards what I'm doing in practice and where I'm going in practice. And I've now got the faith to know that it's the most amazing thing that when I suddenly get this feeling I've got to add something or I've got to look at it differently, I just do. And then something very important comes about. So it's really an important thing. And why did I choose this topic? It's a very vast one with thousands of different practices, 84,000 suited to thousands of different people. And the ordinary human intellectual minds need all the answers before they even begin. Some have a vague memory of the teachings from previous lives, and they can get going a little bit quicker. They don't need too many explanations in the beginning. In the West, those kind of people can just jump into Vajrayana deity practice quite easily, and they have it from memory. That's what happened to me when I came and I got it. I just jumped right into it, and it really made a lot of sense to me. But now it makes a lot more sense to me. But they can do it from this bit of a memory from previous lives. And some just hear 2 sentences of the teaching, or just see something, or meet one important person, and they dive into the deep end. Maybe they try to get some answers much later, or even the answers dawn on them. They don't read them or look at them. The answers dawn on them much later when they remember their deep connection to the Buddhist teaching. Like when someone comes to me for help, and I see lots of different people who've got lots of different religions and lots of different things. And it's so much easier for me if they can understand Buddhism. It's just so much easier for me because they can then leap over the psychology, because that's actually what Buddhism does. And my next talk, which won't be next week, it'll be the week after, I'm going to take all the woundedness of people's psychology, because so many people are asking me for that. And I'm going to see how you can deal with that woundedness with Buddhism. Okay, because there's a completely different attitude entirely. So you can imagine if you were the historical Buddha of an age, how would you teach when you've got thousands of different beings, even animals, hungry ghosts, all people on different realms and at all different levels? You'd either have to start on a lower level, and then those who remembered lots of things would be totally bored and off they went, or you'd start on a lower level and secretly teach those on a higher level, even intermingling it in your teaching for superior people who are more advanced to pick up. Or you teach completely on a higher level and you'd lose all the beginners. So it's quite a problem when you really look at it. Well, our Buddha Shakyamuni solved this by turning the wheel of Dharma 3 times. Once right on the lower level, once on a little bit of a higher level, and once on a much, much higher, more secretive level. Okay, so no one could get despondent. And those who asked him, but why don't you teach more of the advanced teaching? He said, no, it's not the right karma now for that, but in a few hundred years, I will send an emanation who is Guru Rinpoche, who can then teach you the much more advanced teachings. And that's what he actually said. So then the higher teachings will be much more open. So let's just look at the principles of the 3 wheels of Dharma, just the principles. I'm not talking too much about them. I want to take the essence of it. And for people that don't do practice, perhaps they will understand much better what I'm trying to say. But very briefly, you call it Hinayana, but actually Dzongsa Khyentse says don't call it Hinayana, call it Sravakayana, because it's a much better, it was the first turning. It was to liberate yourself. I'm just giving you a very brief outline with vows, monastic life, sutras, and it takes eons of time and eons of time. And basically, it's called the path of renunciation. So you take yourself away from normal life and you really learn how to liberate yourself. You become a Shravaka, you become an Arhat or a Pratyeka Buddha or one of those. That is the first turning of the wheel of Dharma. I don't think any of you are there, but in any case, it's important to know. Then you go to the second turning, which is called the Mahayana, okay? That is the path of purification. So on that path, you're taking what you've got and you're purifying it, okay? You're really purifying everything. So if you had a lot of anger and hatred, you're purifying it into love. You purify it, you clean it. You also turn a little bit away from it, but now you start involving other people because now you're interested in really helping a lot of people. And also, when you come to the Mahayana, they start experiencing emptiness, which means nothing's permanent, nothing's solid. You start to experience that and you start to get an inkling of the Buddha nature and you developing compassion. And then the third level of teaching, which was called the Vajrayana, that is the path of transformation. Renunciation, purification, transformation. So in the Vajrayana, you are transforming from your ordinary self into a pure illusory body. You are doing a complete transformation, and it's a much shorter thing. You can get enlightenment in one lifetime, whereas on the Shravakayana, it can take you eons of time to get enlightened. And many of the masters did it over eons of time. I can't do it over eons of time. I've got to do leap. And for those of you that are even a little bit more tuned, on the Vajrayana, if you go right to the top of the yanas of the Vajrayana, there's a path of self-liberation, a path that is effortless, a path that you just allow everything and it liberates itself, which is so very, very interesting because that's the path of Ati Yoga or Dzogchen right at the top. And you're now going inward to your Buddha nature, to the mandala of your heart. You're looking at the qualities in the mandala of the heart. Nothing's external, it all becomes internal. Okay, so that's kind of an outline, just very, very, very briefly. And so the very highest Vajrayana is called the path of self-liberation. It doesn't mean self-liberation. It means it liberates of itself. So it liberates by itself. If you don't grasp, hold on, hang on, attach, then it liberates all by itself. So actually, it's kind of called a pathless path because you're already there and it's a pathless path. And if only people who came into the Dharma could understand how amazing it is to get these teachings so openly in this day and age. And if only they understood that in the Vajrayana, when you've got the emptiness, and then you've got the creation of the deity, and then you've got the energy of the mantra, and then you've got the dissolution. It's how everything gets created and comes back. And if we could see this, that is how we develop these qualities. And what else is there to do? What else? I see people who are dying and then they come back to life. They're very lucky, and nothing changes. I can't believe this. I cannot believe that people can actually do that they can just want to get back to their old lives. It's absolutely unbelievable. So Anam Thukten, who writes very beautifully, he calls the one the causal yana. So in other words, when you've got the causal yana, it really means in the causal yana that you're doing all these things in order to gain enlightenment. Okay, it's a causal yana. So what you're doing is to help you gain enlightenment. But a resultant yana means that you're not going along somewhere to get somewhere. You are already there. It's such a subtle thing. You've just got to open the mind to know that you are already there, which is really fascinating when you look at it. It's really amazing because you look at the shortcut, you experience the result already before you've started. So it's really important. So I had that lovely little story where, how did we get all this? It's a teaching in the Buddhist scriptures about these three men who approached this wall. And there was something fantastic going on over this wall on the inside. And one both boosts the other up, and he looks over the wall and he goes into absolute bliss. He's in ecstasy. So he climbs over and hops down, and the other two don't know what's on the other side. And they sit there absolutely dumbfounded, and he's gone. So the second one gets boosted up, and he looks over and he says, "Oh, I can't believe what I'm seeing." And he's ecstatic, and he jumps over, and he never gets seen again. So the third one says, "No, no, no. I'm going to find out what's going on the other side of the wall." So he climbs up the wall himself, looks over, and beholds all the beings who are totally liberated, the pure lands he sees over the wall. And he says, "But I'm going to forego my liberation. I'm not going to go up over the wall because I'm going to come back to tell all these other beings what is on the other side of the wall." Okay. Now this story is a very interesting story because if it wasn't for the few who waited to come back, we all wouldn't know. Now, what I want to do tonight, don't know if anybody, if you want to say something or ask something, please just butt in. But I want to take the four aspects of practice. So we're not talking about the practices. If you want short practice you should do, you can go back on my YouTube, and I did a short practice for busy people. You can find it, and I explain all the practices. This is to really understand what all the practices are about, no matter what you do. So there are four aspects to the practice. One is called the view. The most important one is called the view. The second one is called the meditation. You could call it the path or the practice, but it's called the meditation. The third aspect is called the conduct or the behavior. And the fourth aspect is called the fruition or the result. Okay, so the view, the meditation, the conduct or behavior, and the fruition, the result. As soon as we see these four, then we know what the story of the raft is really all about. Because the view, and the fruition. So there's the meditation and the behavior, but the view and the fruition are identical. So what we're doing is, what is absolutely vital is that we get the view. Once we get the view, we can then either go on to the path and the behavior until we come to the fruition. Or if we go to the higher yanas, we begin to realize, well, what am I doing? Once I'm in the view, let me really hang on to that view, not hang on to it, grasp on it, but understand it, because then I might just awaken as it is. But most of us go to the view, then the meditation, then the conduct, and then the fruition. And when we understand this, if we have a view, we practice, we carry out the conduct, all of that to get back to our true nature that hopefully, at least in theory, we already knew about in the view. Now just ponder this. You get a view and you think, this is absolutely amazing. Here I am, and this is absolutely amazing. If I could live this way in the view, how different my life would be. There'd be no more suffering. I wouldn't have all the garbage. So because of that, you start on the path, beginners or advanced, depending on how you relate to the view. The view is the most important thing. You meditate, practice, clean up your veils or obscurations, and then you try to align your behavior in the world with what you've understood. No harming, serving other people. And finally, maybe after eons, you get to the result, which is identical to the view. So what do you think of that? We're going to go into each one, because it's really just contemplate. If you'd stayed right in the view, you already were there in the true awakened nature. So the shortcut would simply be to wake up in the view. But most of us can't do this. Why? Why? Because we're so conditioned to the samsaric, human, ordinary, intellectual mind ways. So we can't wake up because we can't clear the clouds of the sky of our mind. True or false? True, Kathy. Okay, at least you're nodding. True, Fiona. Your Esty, please.
I wanted to talk about the conduct, and I want to go back to the story right at the beginning. Okay. What bothered me was that the raft, once you arrive at the other side of the river, you don't need it anymore. But the raft kept at the corner of my eye, I could still see it. And I was wondering, why don't you send it back? Maybe someone else needs it.
Yeah,
when it falls under the conduct.
But that's the same as the story. Push it back to the other side of the river, but then you.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
No, I think you're right. Push it back. But he said, leave it. It'll float and it'll come to someone else eventually.
Oh, okay.
And they'll be able to cross. The same kind of thing. But we'll come back to the behavior. But isn't it amazing when you think of those four aspects? I'm going to teach you. There are millions of books written about the view. Keith Diamond's done a book, The View. I've just taken 2 or 3 authors of The View and found you some very interesting stuff on it. Go, Dan. Did you want to say something, please?
Yeah, I just want to ask, if you don't mind me asking, where do you see yourself in the journey? Do you see that you've reached, sorry, you said the Vajrayana, like the highest there, or where do you see?
I wish. Okay, I'm just like you, a poor struggler. I've just got 2 things that a lot of people don't have, and that is I've got the discipline and the perseverance, okay? And really, 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 I do try hard, but I am aware that the harder you try, the more you're in the intellectual mind. The more you let everything be, which is the hardest thing for us as human beings to do, the more you are there. But what I have got, which I've really managed to succeed in doing, is that I do understand the view. And that helps. I'm going to give you an explanation now, but that helps a lot because the view is in my mind all the time. I wish I could just wake up and be in the fruition, wake up and be there. No, no, no. I've got a long journey to go. But what is really heartening is that if you really follow the journey, when you die, at least, you should be able to, if you've really worked at it, recognize your own nature when it's really in front of you. And that's what I want to be able to do at the very least. Okay. But no, I'm a little student struggling on the journey, but I study a lot and I practice a lot, and I'm very, very blessed in that one of the masters gave me the empowerment for that higher yoga. Don't ask me why, because I still ask, why did I get it? You know, but obviously he thought I could manage it. And it's difficult when you're on your own, you know, when you're in a community where everybody's working together, it's a lot easier to keep up the practice. And when I read my diaries from the retreats in India, which I was telling them about yesterday, I realized that in that environment, you have so much more of a chance than in this environment. Look at Fiona. She goes out of her house one day. She's very happy. She's doing her practice. She's doing whatever she's got to do. She's attending whatever. And somebody hijacks her, takes away all her identity. And now she's got to spend hours getting it all back again so that she can go here and she can do this and she can go there. And then you think, oh, damn, why is this happening to me? You know, I don't want to waste all this time getting identity cards and stuff like that again. But maybe that is the practice.
Mel, can I come in there as you were talking there? Because it's something actually happened while the hijacking was happening. There was a dreamlike quality to it, first of all. I don't mean a dissociation. It was a bit like watching a movie in some ways. But one thing that once everything had just had happened, the car was gone, and I was standing there in my driveway. I didn't have the keys to the house. I had no ID. I had no phone. I had nothing. And it was literally quite enlightening. I thought, here I am. I've got nothing. You know, it was actually, strangely enough, in the moment, it was quite refreshing because I just thought to myself, I don't have anything. I don't have a car. I don't have an ID. I don't have a phone. I don't have a passport. It was a most peculiar moment, actually.
Most enlightening moment, which is
no,
what
it was. It was, you know, everything was just gone, and you know, it was worrying. On the one hand, I then immediately went into, well, I've got to try and get somebody to get a phone to call somebody, but there were some moments of just, okay, this is it. This is all there is.
Absolutely amazing. And it's exactly the same as this girl that I met at the shops. I've told you this story, that used to come to my groups, and she saw me at the shops and she said, Melanie, I've got to tell you my story. She said, you actually saved me. I said, I saved you. I haven't seen you for years, you know. How did I save you? She said, suddenly there was an electrical fault in their house, and the whole house caught alight. Okay. And her husband said, run. And they ran. They actually got their passports and, you know, stuff they had in a box. So they ran with that and they ran out of the house, phoning the fire engine and everything. And she said, the firemen came, they watched, and they stood there. The whole house was burning down. And her husband was going, our carpets, our pictures, our life, our photographs, our paintings, it's all gone. And she said, Melanie, I had this strange moment, exactly like you. She said, I suddenly thought, well, in life, Melanie taught us that everything is gone in one moment. And she said, and this is the moment. And she said, I didn't tell my husband because he would have thought he would have probably hit me. She said, I felt a strange sense of peace. It's
Yes,
exactly.
I agree. Literally, there was literally 3 or 4 seconds of, okay, well, you know, this is just it, you know, that's all I can describe it.
Because in that moment, you actually realize the dream-like nature of your life. And Danny, for you, you know, when you go, Danny had the loss of her mother, and then you know how it is when you lose your mother at a young age. I mean, you could tell her, Esty, you lost yours at a very young age. But when you lose them and you start going over, you know, all the things, and I should have done this, and I would have done this, and maybe I should have done this, and maybe I could have helped, and maybe it wouldn't have happened, and all these sort of things. Of course, that's a normal human thing. But suddenly, there comes a moment when you recognize why things happen to you. You wrote me an interesting text, Esty, when you just suddenly said, all my anger's gone. Just suddenly, it's all gone. You know, it's a moment, that moment, since you've all brought it up, is when you get the view. And the view in Tibetan Buddhism is called tawa. And tawa means to see, to see. It's when you see. Okay, in the view, Guru Rinpoche states in every single text, your view must be as high as the sky, where your conduct must be as fine as barley on the ground, you know, all the little seeds. It must be fine, your conduct. But your view, you must keep that view as high as the sky. And Jean, for you, having a high view is absolutely essential, because you've had to go through a lot of things. And while you've gone through those things, if you have that view, the kind of view we're talking about, in that moment, you think, oh, after all that I've wanted, hated, I'm in the right place at the right time. Not only you, but everybody. When you have that sudden view, then it's all okay. Even though 5 minutes later, you're back to dissecting everything and looking at everything. It's unbelievable, you know. So what we've got here is to look at that view. He says the view must be as high as the sky, as opposed to your conduct. And we see in the view, we see our own nature from the very beginning is infinite emptiness. It's spacious. It's possible. It's not this little roll of Melanie. It's 1,000,001 things. You could be the deity. You could be whatever you really, really need. It's absolutely infinite without any limitation. And it's not dependent on anything at all. To see in inverted commas means this is how to experience this. We need to, number one, get used to this kind of new experience. So this new kind of experience. So in your case, now you're going and you're applying for this, and nobody helps you, and this organization does you in, and this person doesn't help you, and you're fed up and you're in the thick of it. And then you get used to that experience. Oh my God, without an identity, I was so free. It was amazing. Let me remember that all the time while I'm applying, not lose it. Secondly, to maintain it, live in it all the time. Keep reminding yourself. And thirdly, to relax into it. To relax into it. Because you have that experience of the view, And then you relax into it. And then everything gets broader. Everything gets more spacious. It's unbelievable. Okay. And Dajjal Rinpoche, when he talks about the view, he says, to begin, the view is recognition of ultimate reality as it is. You know it, you feel it. In 1 minute, you say, I know what I'm doing here. It's unbelievable. My job isn't going well. My finances aren't going well. I've got to give up this. I've got to do this. I'm a little bit sick. I'm not as fast as I was. But I'm in the right place at the right time. And that part of me is much greater than what I am experiencing. And he says, your mind's nature is the ultimate nature of reality. And what you need is certainty in awareness. That's your sentence for tonight. Certainty in awareness, free from all the characteristics of intellectual minds, fabrication, contrivance. Awareness just nakedly manifests as self-manifest wisdom. And he says, words can't express it. You just know. You've got that awareness. You just know. And he says it doesn't get worse in samsara and it doesn't get better in nirvana. He says awareness is not material. The essence is primordially pure, all-pervasive emptiness. We resolve all phenomena in this awareness. So looking at Fiona's example, here I am. And because of that, I now understand who I am and what I'm doing. And whether I take my identity and I get everything correctly processed or I don't, I'm still the same open, absolutely spacious being. And Fiona is one iota of that. That's all. There are millions of iotas of that, okay? And it's so important because we have to keep remembering the view, reminding ourselves constantly, which brings me to the next point, which is the meditation or the practice or the path, very briefly. James Lowe says, the meditation is your opportunity to try and shift the view. Try and shift the view. Try and get that view so that you can be clear like the sun. You're trying to move the view into your practice and into your life. He says you want to be free of clouds. What are clouds? He asks, well, what are clouds? He says, your assumptions. Think how many assumptions you make in the day. You assume this is going to happen. You assume this child's going to be like that. You assume this is right. You assume that is wrong. You make a million assumptions. Those are clouds in the beautiful sky. He says, your assumption, your karmic habits. What are your karmic habits? Oh, I must eat something. You know, I've got to eat. I'm hungry and it's not enough and I need more. Your karmic habits. I need to have it out with this person. I need to do this. I need my house to be immaculate. I need this. I need that. Your impulses, your personal history. Those are your clouds. You haven't got one anymore, Fiona. You haven't got a personal history anymore. Bravo. Okay. You haven't got. I've got it all in my bag and I'm so scared to leave it there, okay? And out of this, we create some notion of who we are. And we try and get less clouds, we've got more clouds than sun. So we try to lift the clouds off so the clarity is there, and then the view manifests through us. That's what we're doing in the practice. So when he says, in the tantric, in the Vajrayana meditation, it teaches us to understand the structure of how we got lost. So let's take an example. So right now, tonight, we were doing Chenrezi. We were creating ourselves as Chenrezi. Chenrezi is the part of us that is totally compassionate. So what we do is we go out of Daniela, Fiona, Kathy, Melanie, Esty, Molly. We go out of that and into the identity of Chenrezi. And when we do that, we realize how we got lost. Because if we follow all the writing in that practice, I mean, this girl Karen in my Monday morning group says she does all her prayers in English. She's not interested because she wants to follow everything. So you track, well, what am I doing here? How did I get lost? How did I get to believe that Melanie was everything that I am? Now, in the practice, I'm becoming other things. I'm becoming Chenrezi. I'm becoming Guru Rinpoche. I'm becoming other roles. And those are pure roles, and mine's an impure role. I'm not attaching so much to that identity. And then you begin to understand the truth. And Dajjal Rinpoche says in the meditation, sustaining the view's continuity is called meditation. So you've got this view, and whatever practice you're doing, and we're going to do a little bit now, but whatever practice you are doing, you sustain that view, who you really are, what you really are, what your true nature is about. Doesn't matter what you're doing. As you're doing a practice of Vajrayana, and you now are Chenrezi, you are understanding that the view's continuity. Oh, I'm Guru Rinpoche, I'm Chenrezi, I'm Tara, I'm whatever, okay? It's really a most beautiful thing because you realize how you got lost in that other identity that's on this earth plane. So the view's continuity is called meditation. Meditate with the view, not, he says, not conceptual meditations fabricated by the mind. Now I'm sitting. Now I'm going to be in a perfect thing. Oh no, I'm not meditating because I've got so many thoughts. Just let them be. Oh no, now I'm thinking again. Stop. Actually maintain exactly what you're doing. Maintain the view, not conceptual things. Release all the consciousness of the five senses within your natural state and rest at ease. Tell me when you last rested at ease. Tell me. How many times did you rest at ease today? The moment that you rest at ease, even when you're doing practice, you remember the view. It's such an important thing. He says, don't meditate to arrive at a conclusion, that's it. Otherwise, it's an intellectual activity. There's no object of meditation. There's no distraction. Distraction from resting in awareness is true delusion. Let me read that sentence again. Distraction from resting, doing nothing, just resting, knowing. That is the delusion. If you are distracted from resting in awareness, that's all you have to do. He says that's it. But leave phenomena as they are. Leave everything as it is. Their brilliance doesn't diminish. Don't spoil phenomena, he says, with clinging and grasping. All luminous, naked awareness by recognizing thoughts as soon as they arrive. So you're sitting there, you're doing your practice, and suddenly you think, damn, I didn't do what I had to do for work today. Make a note of it in your mind and bring your mind back to rest in awareness. Your awareness will hold that you need to do later. But if now your whole meditation becomes distracted, your whole practice becomes distracted because you didn't do it, then just take a moment out, do it, and come back. But when you do it, don't get distracted. Now that's what we're talking about. It's very interesting because it changes all your perspective, the view, the meditation. Now let's just quickly do the conduct and the behavior. That's all you do when you're not meditating or you're not practicing, is your behavior. It's called non-action. So you're doing it, but very effortlessly, very fine. You know, I brought for you a little one of my, I've been looking in all my journals from my retreat and everything. And this was my writing that I wrote. It was in 2016. And I wrote this. I was busy in my little room, my retreat room. I was cleaning or cooking or whatever I was doing. And I said, here, I wrote afterwards, even on retreat, I've always done mundane things quickly. I cook quickly and then I'm back to the practice. But this retreat, it's completely different. I was doing an exercise with Dorji Sempa, that's Vajrasattva, when it became clear to me in the middle of my practice, this thing plopped in. Whatever you do is the practice. So if you suddenly forgot to do something and you're practicing, and you know it was quite important for you to do it, get up from your cushion, your practice. Just go and do it, but don't lose that awareness for 1 minute. So whatever you do, do it with your full awareness if you forgot to do it. And I wrote here, whatever you do is the practice. I wrote here, it seems obvious, but it really isn't. When you do tasks and chores, slowly, really feeling them. Now I wrote all the messes. I said, there is preciseness, cleanness, gentleness, joyness. There's not a word joyness, but I wrote joyness, understandingness, clearness, beautiness. That only happens when you start living in your true nature. No need to rush, I wrote. You are already there. It's a very interesting thing. I found it and I thought, I must read it to you because I've got all these journals and in them I always have amazing insights. When I'm in the middle of a retreat, I get these amazing insights. It is the practice. So the behavior and the conduct, it's non-action. And the other word you've got to put in is equal taste. Equal taste. Now, what does equal taste mean? When there was this monk that was really sick and he stunk, he'd been lying there, nobody could wash him because he really, from his disease and not washing, he was really, really very smelly and everything, and none of them could go near him. It was too revolting to go near him. The Buddha came and he said, get me some hot water. And he took the hot water, he put the soap into the bowl, and slowly he stripped off the monk's clothes, he washed him. There was not even the slightest revulsion. He just did what was necessary with awareness, with beauty, with service. It made no difference. So equal taste means to us, little mortals, whatever you're doing, it doesn't make a difference. Do it with awareness, do it with calmness, do it with joyness, of which there isn't a word, I made that up. Do it with just your own beauty. What a wonderful thing. That is what your behavior is about. Whatever you have to do, you allow your essence to work through you with the wisdom of perfected action without connivance. Now, this is such an important thing. It really, really is. And I think that Zongsa, when he was giving a beautiful lecture on on Buddhism in the West, he said, actually, your code of conduct has to only include 3 things. Number 1, never harming. Never, ever harming. That's so hard. It's really hard. I mean, we get ants on our bed. So I flick them off, because otherwise when I lie down and they crawl on me, they wake me up. So I flick them off. So my husband said, don't do that. Go and get a piece of paper and take them, and go and take them outside or where you want them. So now I've got the piece of paper. I go and get them, because you never harm. You never ever harm anything or anyone. You keep that in your code. Secondly, helping all the time, he said. But I'm adding to that. I've been listening to a lot of people lately. Sometimes I'm helping somebody and helping somebody and helping somebody and helping somebody, and they're not getting helped. And then I know that I'm doing a false role of rescuing. I'm actually not helping them anymore, because they're not listening. They're not taking the necessary steps. Then you might have to take a step back. But always helping in your code. And thirdly, pure perception. So never harming, always helping, and pure perception. Try and get a pure perception of things, which is really important. Now he says, when we come to the fruition, the result, that last part. So we've looked very briefly at the view, the meditation, the conduct, and the fruition. The fruition is identical to the view. And we could say that we're in this world, but not of this world. That's a very good way to look at it. You're in the world, but not of this world, because it doesn't, it doesn't really matter. And James Lowe said, when he was talking of fruition, Buddhahood is to recognize the nature of your own ground, your own basis. Everything comes out of that basis. And in all that, all faults and limitations are self-liberated. Everything is pure from the beginning. And he says, if we don't know other people's realization is, we should treat everyone as if they are a Buddha, with infinite respect, with validation and belief in their potential and possibility. Now, I love that. And, just treat everybody as a Buddha and let them really give you and see their pure potential. Such a lovely thing when you're looking at somebody and they look so awful and they're angry and everything, but you suddenly realize they're a Buddha. Treat them as though they are one, and be there. Be compassionate and don't be impatient. And, it's very funny, because Zongsa in that lecture, this is what he says. What we should do is outwardly practice the code of Shravakayana, the pure behavior. Shravakayana is all the renunciation, but he gives it like this. I killed myself laughing. He said, be politically correct, attend mindfulness courses, give to animal charities, amenable, do the right things, and become vegan and all of those things. He says, so outwardly, you do all the politically correct things. So you become a vegan, you give to the animal charity, you help all people, you do everything you're supposed to do. I laughed like anything when he said this. He says, inwardly, you practice the code of Mahayana. Only thing that matters is helping people towards enlightenment. And secretly, he says, you practice Vajrayana. You're a wild yogini, nothing tangible. You don't care a damn about the nitty-gritty things or appearances or anything. So in other words, your outward appearance, you do all the politically correct things. Your inner appearance, you're really there to help people. And your secret appearance, you are this wild yogi or yogini. you know, running around, and you don't care a damn about all the material things, about identity cards, about anything. You just care about your Buddha nature. And I think it's so beautifully put, because, you know, that's what we're all about. That's what we do. So the fruition and the view are identical. And it's very exciting when you think of it, because now you've got the view. You can go and get the view. It's really beautiful. It's really, really, really beautiful. Any comments before we do the meditation? Because I'm just going to give you a little bit of the preparatory practice as a meditation tonight. Quick, easy, short. So ask me first if you want to know. How do you feel, Kathy, about those four: the view, the meditation, the conduct, and the fruition? What do you think about them? Don't you think it's a wonderful way to look at all practice?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, nothing's really coming to mind on, you know, what to say right now to it.
Don't look for things to say.
Yeah.
You know, I can see that you are digesting it very well. But if anybody wants to say, please do. Because when you've got this, it doesn't matter. I don't care. You know, when you do the preparatory practices, I don't care if you do 2 prostrations. Just understand what you're doing. Like, don't think this is just a rote practice and I've got to get through so many. Don't do that with any of your practices, because each practice is so special. And when we do the meditation, I'm just going to take you through a quick Nandra preparatory preliminary practice now while you're sitting here. We've got enough minutes to do it. But before we go on to it, just tell me if anybody wants to ask or say. Danny, do you, Mimi, Molly, Jean? No?
I just want to say I'm going to go be getting my bus mail, so I'm going to join from my phone, okay?
Okay, no problem, Shane. I'm just going to give them the preliminary practices a little bit, just a short thing, okay? I'm going to give it to you in meditation. Anybody want to say or ask anything? Terry, anyone? No? You're all okay? You're done, please.
Like, I think it's beautiful and it makes sense and everything. The only thing is, it seems like people put so much into it and they have the right view and they really understand and that. And then you just get a little glimpse. It's like, there's still so much, like you don't achieve Buddhahood, or like.
No, you don't, but you can. You know, that's the beautiful thing. And the beautiful thing is the only reason why you don't, like Tulku Urgent Rinpoche, you know, when you do the Nandra practice, which I'm going to give you a little bit now, when you do that, you know, he says in this dark age, you need to do 400,000 of each of the practices. Okay, I did 100,000 and oh my God, it was really hectic doing it. And I was like one of the first in the group to finish because I was determined I was going to do it. It was really stupid in a way, but I really wanted to do it because it was dependent very, very much, if I did it, that I would be allowed to do other things. So for me, it was really important that I actually did that practice. But I know that a lot of people are not going to do this very, very, very deep practice, hours and hours, as you say, Danny. They want to do shorter things and be able to get there quicker. The only reason that doesn't work is because of all the obscurations, because of all the crap that we've got psychologically, because of all the rubbish in our psyche, because of all our wounds, because of all our traumas. That's the only reason, because think of this. Here is the Buddha nature. Let's take something. Here is the Buddha nature. This never whatever gets touched, here's your rubbish that you've got inside you. Nothing can touch that. Now just think about it. But because of the habit of your conditioning over so many eons of time, you just can't get beyond all the rubbish inside you. You know, that's the problem. I'm talking about everybody, not about you. I'm talking about the fact that all of us can't get beyond it because we've got so much rubbish that we haven't dealt with. Do you know what I'm trying to say? But actually, you could awaken to Buddhahood right now, you know, right this minute, because it's already there. It's just that we've got so much covering over, and that's what I want to do next time. I really want to take the woundedness, the traumas, the scars, everything, and show you how that blocks your practice and teach people a way to release that stuff. But you have to be prepared to release it. You know, a lot of people don't. And I was telling them yesterday, and I think it's such a wonderful analogy for those of you who weren't at the group yesterday. I was telling them yesterday that James Lowe, in one of his talks, he said that if you take an alcoholic or a drug addict, their body is full of toxins, okay? Their body is just totally full of toxins. And what happens is, if they stop taking the drugs, then what happens is their body gets this craving for the toxins. So they're not interested in going through the cleansing and then coming out on the other side. They just want more of the toxins. Now, he says that about drug addicts, but then he goes on to say, people have got all these toxins in them. And when you try and show them a way to clear the toxins, to really clear the toxins, when you show them a way to clear the toxins, they're not interested. All they want to do is go back to the toxins. Same as the addict. We addicted to the samsaric way of life. Right, Phyllis? We are addicted to the samsaric way of life. And when people take you away from it, other people pull you back into it because they like you like that, because that's how they know you. And you have to have the courage to take that view and keep that view so that you can change everything in your life. Hello, TT. I'm very happy you're here, even if it's at the end of the talk. She said she's coming and she got you at about 20 to 9. Okay. But do you understand what I'm saying, Danny? So you've got to make up your mind. You don't want the toxins anymore. And that anyway, most of those toxins were absolutely, they really were not tangible. And once you can make up your mind like that, you could start clearing them with the practices. So it's very important. So let's do a little practice now. Let's do a little bit of practice. I want you to get into a meditation position. And I want you to breathe in and breathe out and come to this moment. The past is gone and the future hasn't been made. And I want you to ponder the preparatory, preliminary practices called Nondro. Because those practices, I did them in a proper way, and then I have gone back to do them all over again, because I don't care if you do 1 or you do 5 or you do 400,000 or 100,000, as long as you know that we are clearing the clouds, the obscurations. We are understanding our lives in samsara. We are finding a place of safety when we look around this world There are no places of safety. There's no refuge. When we do the practices, we're finding a place of safety. We're learning to have compassion to all. We're developing generosity and understanding the mandala, the perfect whole that is in our heart. And we're doing the Guru Yoga to really exchange our ordinary body, speech, and mind for enlightened body, speech, and mind. And it's very important. So we're going to just do 5 minutes of the 4 mind changes. If you like any of them, even if you've done them, it does not matter. When I was in India at the Karmapas monastery, I did them all over again, and I didn't do the titles in the book. I just did my own thing. So I want you tonight to just do 5 minutes of those 4 ordinary preliminary practices called the 4 mind changes. And when you are at home tomorrow, or whenever it is, you can Google the 4 mind changes in Buddhism, and then just take one each week and just contemplate it, you too. And just contemplate it and allow yourself to see, because these 4 mind changes will take your mind, and like your mind turns to the sun, like the sunflower turns to the sun, your mind will turn to the view. So let's start with the first one, the preciousness of human life. Just a couple of sentences. You are contemplating the preciousness of human life. The human life gives us the most unbelievable opportunity. We have a mind that can actually make it up to be able to change. This human realm gives us the opportunity for change more than any of the other samsaric realms. But we really forget to contemplate the preciousness of this human birth and what it means. If we were in an animal body, we might even get treated very well. We wouldn't have the opportunity to study the Dharma, to know we had a Buddha nature. So we contemplate the preciousness of human birth and all the elements of it. That's point 1, the first mind changer. Then we contemplate impermanence and death. That might sound like a morbid subject, but Akon Rinpoche said, if you contemplate impermanence constantly, you will never have another problem in your life, because you will never attach to things, you will appreciate things, you will understand things, but you will know that everything, even the good things, the good relationships, the good purposes, everything is impermanent. Your body is impermanent. Your life is impermanent. Suddenly someone's in your life and suddenly they're gone. And when death comes, we have to be ready. The seasons are impermanent. Day and night is impermanent. The stars are impermanent. Your body is totally impermanent. And when we come to death, we must be ready. We must know this is when my body changes into something else, and I must be ready. And when we are having a lovely time, we still contemplate impermanence, because we know that that too shall come to an end. And when we're having an ugly time, we really contemplate impermanence, because we know that we will manage through this, because it too shall pass. And the third mind changer is contemplating karma, cause and effect. How things got to be. How many different causes come together in order for something to come. How we, make the karmic imprints on our alaya consciousness, and that those come to fruition depending on how deep they are. And that when we are going through things, we just know that our conduct must try to be fine and fair and not harmful, because the more we harm, the more karma comes to us. And we realize that karma is very, very relative. Ultimately, there's no karma, but relatively, we're living in the days of our karma. So we try and bring forward much more virtuous behavior, much more compassion, much more understanding, so that in fact we're not creating negative karma even on a relative level. And finally, the fourth mind changer is when we look at samsara. Samsara is always suffering. Everything is changing. We suffer from one thing, and then another thing happens, and then another thing happens, and then another thing happens. It's called the suffering of suffering. We suffer from change. We had something and now it's gone. We suffer from general things in samsara. In fact, everything in samsara is suffering. But if we can have that view, we know we are just purifying, purifying, purifying. And if we don't know about suffering, and that giving ourselves fully to samsara and our intellectual mind is going to cause great suffering, then we are very deluded. We're like putting our head on an executioner's block and getting it chopped off, a very stupid thing to do. So we actually begin to understand those four mind changes. You can take each one, you can Google them, you will get all the different aspects to contemplate, and you should take one a week and contemplate them and see how your whole mind changes into the view of looking at things from a different perspective. The preciousness of human birth, impermanence and death, karma, cause and effect, and the fact that the whole of samsara is the suffering. So we really need to go beyond it. And when we have contemplated all four, then we go on to the special preliminaries. And tonight I just want to do 5 minutes on them. Those of you that want to do them, you can get hold of Alan. I will give you his number, and he will tell you where to get all his teaching. He does it all. You can do it. But I don't really care whether you go and you place yourself under doing the Nondra, or whether you just contemplate tonight and do 1 or 2 things, which is also okay. So when we start, the first practice is called refuge and bodhicitta. And in the refuge, we do prostrations, but the prostrations are not to anybody. They're to actually understand that you have a Buddha nature, and they are actually to get you to go into that Buddha nature and to take the refuge. You can take an outer refuge, you can take an inner refuge, you can take a secret refuge, which is right inside yourself. And when you take that refuge, at the same time, you do the bodhicitta vow, and that is a vow always to help and serve everybody. The most beautiful bodhicitta vow is embodied in the refuge prayers. And it's really, really, really important. And I don't care if you do 1 or 2. And I don't mind. I mean, Ige, if you do them with Mother Mary, that's absolutely beautiful. It's no problem with them at all, because it's really to yourself. It's really to your own highest nature. And then we do the Vajrasattva. For all of this, we've got all stuff that you can go and read. I mean, you can go and listen to. Vajrasattva is called the 100-syllable mantra. Vajrasattva is right in the middle of the mandala, and he pours a white, pure light over you as you recite the 100-syllable mantra. Now, what I do is I always do Vajrasattva, at least some every day. And when I'm doing it, I put all the people that are in pain and going through terrible things. And when I see the whitewashing of myself, I see the whitewashing over them. And it's a 100-syllable mantra so that you can awaken the 100 aspects of who you really are. It is very powerful. When you do the prostrations and you do the Vajrasattva, when you really do the Nondra properly, it comes through the pores of your skin. You actually feel the rubbish coming out of you. That's when you clear all the obscurations. Very beautiful, very blessed prayers. And then you go on to the mandala offering. The mandala offering is a total circle that you are giving of everything that you have in your being. And it creates the most unbelievable generosity. And generosity is how you accumulate merit. We need merit and wisdom. And when you do the mandala offering, you're creating a tremendous amount of merit. When you give it from your heart with the most beautiful feeling, you are creating and accumulating a lot of merit. When you've got a lot of merit, then you are able to get everything you need for the view, for the teaching, for everything. So the more you create, the more you are able to receive for yourself. And then finally, the Guru Yoga. The Guru Yoga is one of the most important practices. Now, I've done such a lot of teaching on this. If you're interested in doing it, very simply, just go back on the YouTubes and find my teaching on Guru Yoga. The Guru Yoga, you can do it with Padmasambhava. You can do it with your own Buddha, your own nature. But it's swapping your ordinary body, your ordinary speech, your ordinary mind for an enlightened body, enlightened speech, enlightened mind, and all together. So you take the 4 empowerments from the Guru above you, and you incorporate them completely and totally into your being. And you dissolve it all into the beauty. And the Guru Yoga is an absolute necessity. You can do it for 5 minutes, you can do it for an hour, you could do it for 20 minutes, you could do it complex, you could do it very, very simply, just with the empowerments. I've got a lot of teaching on it, and if you want to do it, you're really welcome to go back and get it and see. But the Nondra, all of these preliminary practices, they prepare you for the proper view. And people say, why should I do it, Melanie? Why should I do it? And I say to them, go back to your meditation. Don't come out of it. I say to them, you do it because you need to find a way to take that view, incorporate it into your life. And you need to go on a journey to clear and get the right perspective of all your obscurations and to come to your Buddha nature, as Danny was asking. There's no other way, only for one reason. Remember, the raft is the practice. You only need the raft to cross the ocean, and then you can throw it away. It's of no relevance to you except to help other people to get it. It's not relevant. But these practices are given to really assist us to clean those clouds up. And unfortunately, with the amount of clouds and obscurations and obstacles that we've created for ourselves, it's really difficult to get there on your own. So these practices, I don't go a single day. I did my 100,000, and I don't go a single day without doing at least some of these practices. I just do one mandala offering. I do X amount of Vajrasattva. I do it every day. I do a few prostrations, but I try to do it with the inner refuge. so that you are safe. And I know when I've done that, that I've actually made myself in alignment with my own Buddha nature, which is really important for your day. So coming into the practice, using your breathing, causing yourself to allow yourself to be aware and not losing that with distraction for 1 minute, even if you've got to do something in the middle of your meditation, get up and do it without losing that awareness even for 1 minute. Anyone want to say anything or ask? I've just given you a brief overview, but we've got lots of teaching on all of this. So if you want to have a very, very short practice, go back and there's one of mine, I must ask Nadine that it's definitely on. It was just called something like a short morning practice for busy people. So you can do the practice in 20 minutes, and I give whatever you have to do and explain it. And the Guru Yoga you could do with it. So what are you thinking, guys? One comment and then we'll end. Anyone want to say? Please, Dan, please. It's very important.
I was just thinking, you mentioned that somebody else wants to do all of them in English because that, but I remember you saying that when we do it, I think in Sanskrit, that carries the energy with it.
Yeah, in Tibet, yeah, because
Tibetan.
Some Sanskrit too, but it does carry the energy, and either you relate to it or you don't. But I mean, I think a lot of the masters are going to see that all the prayers are done in English. Like you saw when we did the opening prayers, those were done by Drupal Rinpoche. He said, no, give it to them in English. Now I like that English, but I also like the Tibetan because I know it so well, So you can interspace, but I never ever do a practice without looking at the English explanation. I never just do it by rote. For a long time, like when I was doing Tara, I would read it in Tibetan and then I might stop the tape and read it in English, just to see that I know what I'm doing. And then once I grasp that, then I don't have to look at the English anymore. I love it. But lots of people are doing it in English, but the English hasn't got that. It's like if you do Hebrew prayers in English, they're not the same. The Hebrew's got a vibe, and the same with the Tibetan. It's got that vibe, that singing, that everything. But I think in a very short space of time, there'll be lots of songs in English in the Vajrayana. And Dzongsa is one who's really, really wants it not to be in Tibetan. He says, you just do it in your own language, in your own way. And I know that the Dalai Lama also always says, when people come to him and they say, do you have to be Buddhist to do this? He says, no, you stay in your own religion. He never tries to convert people to Buddhism. He says, you stay in your own religion. But the philosophy of Buddhism is so beautiful. You can do it with any religion. You really, really can, So that's important. So you can ask me anything, and you can ask as many questions you like. And Danny, I don't care if it's just you asking questions. You asking on behalf of everybody, so it's just fine. Okay. Sometimes in my group, I'll have somebody like I used to have a few guys who asked things and said things all the time. The moment my groups are quite quiet, so I'm very happy for the people that question. It's absolutely fine. So I'll stay if anybody wants to ask me, but try and remember, and you can Google them, the view, the meditation, the behavior, and the fruition. And Google them. There are millions of people have written about them. So interesting, and try and find something of a view that you really like and stick at it. Take it in the morning, remember your view, and carry it right through the day. And then whatever you do will be beautiful. Okay. So I'm not going to see you all next week. Sorry, Jean, did you want to say something? Please. Oh, okay. You're just going like that. Okay, fine. Let's dedicate for all sentient beings, especially all the sentient beings that are really, really suffering. And when I come back, not next week, the week after, we'll do that woundedness and what you can do for it. So we dedicate to all sentient beings, especially those caught in the wars, especially those caught in the suffering, the hostages, the children in Gaza, everything, the people in Sudan, the people in Haiti, and all the places. We really dedicate all our teachings and pray that they can find something beautiful in their own selves, even though they're going through terrible times. And through this merit, may we achieve all-seeing Buddhahood, and thereafter, once all harmful enemies have been defeated, may all beings be liberated from the ocean of existence, stirred by the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Sonamdiye tamche zipane topne nepe dranam pamshene jegana chi balap tropaye sipe sole doa dro warsho. Stop the recording.